A cold wind curled around the old apartment building as the city clock struck midnight. Most of the neighborhood had already surrendered to sleep, their windows dim and peaceful, but on the fourth floor, a small square of light glowed from the living room of an elderly woman named Mrs. Adeline Moore. She sat bundled in a knitted shawl, the one her late husband had given her on their final anniversary together. It was a night like any other, quiet, lonely, and heavy with the weight of memories she could no longer share with anyone. Adeline had lived alone since her husband's passing 4 years ago. Her son had moved abroad for work, and though he called when he could, life had pulled them into separate orbits. Her neighbors greeted her politely, of course, but everyone seemed forever in a hurry, too busy, too tired, too absorbed. The world around her spun faster each year, and she felt herself drifting at the edges, a spectator rather than a participant. Tonight, however, something was different. Her chest felt tight, and the pain crawled across her shoulders like invisible vines. She tried standing, but the dizziness washed over her like a wave. She wanted to reach for her phone, but her fingers trembled so violently that it slid to the floor. The fear rose hot in her throat. "Not tonight, please, not alone," she whispered to the empty room. And then, impossibly, there was a knock at her door. It was soft at first, 2 hesitant taps. Then, after a moment, 3 firmer ones. Adeline froze. Who would visit her at midnight? She wanted to ignore it. Trouble only came at such hours, her husband used to say. But again the knock sounded, gentle but urgent. "Mrs. Moore," a young voice called from the other side. "Are you awake?" It's Alex from downstairs. I saw your light on." She knew the boy, barely. He lived on the second floor, always carrying a backpack too big for his narrow shoulders. He greeted her politely, always holding the elevator for her, but she had never exchanged more than a few words with him. "Please," Alex added softly, I heard something. Like something fell. Are you okay?" Her heart fluttered, not from fear this time, but from something warmer. Compassion had come to her door at midnight. With trembling steps, she reached the door and unlocked it. The boy stood there, shivering slightly in a thin hoodie, worry etched across his face. "Mrs. Moore," he breathed, "you look pale. Are you sick?" She tried to answer, but the pain flared again, and she gripped the doorframe. Alex quickly stepped inside to steady her. "Sit down," he urged, guiding her to the couch. "Do you need an ambulance?" She hesitated. She hated hospitals, hated the expense, hated the thought of being alone in a white sterile room with no one to talk to. But her vision blurred around the edges. I don't know," she whispered. Alex pulled out his phone but paused. "Let me check something first, okay? My mom taught me some things, she's a nurse." He gently checked her pulse, asked about her pain, and watched her breathing. His brow furrowed. "I think we should call for help," he said carefully. "Better to be safe." She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the kind that expected nothing in return. Slowly, she nodded. But when he dialed emergency services, he didn't leave her side. He took her hand into his. "You're not alone," he said quietly, almost as if he could sense the years of loneliness she had carried. "I'll stay with you until they come." And he did. He asked her about her favorite books, her favorite memories, her husband. She told him stories she hadn't told anyone in years, stories she didn't realize she still remembered, stories that made her laugh softly through the pain. When the paramedics arrived, Alex helped them gather her things. He insisted on riding along, even though he had school the next morning. "I can't let her go alone," he told them with a firmness far larger than his small frame. The hospital lights were bright, but Adeline no longer felt afraid. Alex stayed in the waiting area while the doctors examined her. Hours passed, 2, then 3. It was nearly dawn when the doctor walked into the hallway. "It wasn't a heart attack," he told her gently. But the symptoms suggested severe anxiety and strain. Likely triggered by exhaustion and stress. "You're stable now, but we want you to rest." Relief washed over her. Then worry replaced it. The boy. "Alex, he must be so tired." The doctor smiled. "He's right outside. Hasn't moved from that chair." When she was rolled out, Alex stood up quickly. "You're okay?" he asked, eyes wide with concern. Yes, dear, she said softly, touched far more deeply than she could express. Thanks to you. He finally relaxed, sinking back into the chair. I was really scared. She gave his hand a gentle squeeze. I think I was too. But you were very brave. The nurse approached. She'll be discharged later today, but she'll need someone with her for at least a day or two. Is there any family nearby? Adeline's heart sank, but before she could answer, Alex spoke. I can help. I mean, if that's okay, he added quickly. I don't have school for 2 days, we have a local holiday. And Mom works night shifts, so I'm usually alone at home anyway. Adeline looked at him carefully, this boy who had climbed stairs at midnight just because he heard something suspicious. This boy who had chosen to stay, even in uncertainty. Compassion had knocked at midnight, and now it was offering to stay. The nurse looked unsure. We'd need your mother's approval. I'll call her, he said confidently. To her surprise, his mother not only approved but came rushing to the hospital. She was warm, kind, and relieved that her son had helped instead of ignoring what he heard. I always tell him, she said to Adeline, if you can help someone, even a little, don't hesitate. When Adeline was discharged, they took her home. Alex made her tea, arranged her pillows, and even insisted she sit while he cleaned up the mug she had dropped earlier. You don't have to fuss over me, she chuckled, feeling lighter than she had in years. I want to, he replied. I like helping people. Over the next 2 days, he visited her regularly, bringing soup, reading to her, showing her silly videos to make her laugh. She discovered he loved drawing, was good at math but horrible at history, and dreamed of becoming a doctor but doubted he could afford the studies. Why not, she had asked one afternoon, curious. He shrugged. It's expensive. Mom is already doing so much. I don't want to make things harder. She thought about her own life, how she and her husband had saved and saved, always dreaming of giving back somehow but never finding the right moment. She had lived cautiously, sensibly, with little indulgence. And now the small savings remained unused, quietly resting in her account with no purpose. That night, after Alex left, she sat alone in her quiet apartment. But the silence no longer felt so heavy. Her mind was full, not with memories of the past, but with a new possibility. Compassion had knocked at midnight. Maybe it was her turn to knock back. The next morning, she made a decision that surprised even her. She contacted a legal advisor and set up a small educational trust in Alex's name, nothing extravagant, but enough to help him through college when the time came. She didn't plan to tell him yet. He was still so young. But she wanted him to know someday that the kindness he gave was not forgotten. A week after her midnight scare, she invited him for tea. I wanted to thank you, she told him, pouring him a cup. For everything you did. He shrugged shyly. I just did what anyone would do. No, she corrected gently. You did what a kind heart would do. And not everyone has one. He blushed, looking away. She smiled. In my life, kindness has come to me in many forms. But the night you knocked on my door, that was something special. He looked up at her, his eyes warm and earnest. I didn't think. I just felt like you needed someone. And I did, she said softly. Their bond grew naturally after that, deep, unexpected, and precious. He visited her every few days, sometimes helping with groceries, sometimes simply chatting. They became each other's quiet support, she helping him study history, he helping her with small tasks around the house. The neighbors began noticing, too, and gradually, more people started checking on her, offering help, stopping by. The loneliness that had once hung over her home slowly faded away. Months later, when Alex won a local science competition, he rushed upstairs to tell her first before anyone else. She hugged him, pride blooming in her chest like a warm fire. Your heart will take you far, she told him. Don't ever doubt that. Years passed. The trust she created for him remained a secret, waiting patiently for the right time. But the real treasure was the companionship that grew between them, the kind that doesn't need blood to feel like family. When he finally graduated high school and received his acceptance letter to a medical program, he ran upstairs again, breathless and glowing with joy. She had tears in her eyes before he even spoke. I got in, he shouted, waving the letter in the air. She laughed, a joyful, trembling laugh that filled the room. I knew you would. He hugged her tight, and she held on just as firmly. It wasn't until months later, when he went to apply for financial assistance, that he learned about the trust she had created for him. He ran to her apartment, tears streaming down his face. Why would you do this for me? She cupped his cheek gently, just as a grandmother would. Because compassion knocked at my door one night, and I wanted to carry you into your future. He hugged her again, sobbing softly, not from sadness but from the overwhelming weight of love. And she whispered into his hair. You saved me that night. Not just my health, but my heart. In the years that followed, Alex became the doctor he had always dreamed of being, a doctor known for compassion, for sincerity, for taking time to sit beside his patients, especially the elderly ones who felt forgotten by the world. And he always credited his path to a single moment, a moment when he chose to knock on a door at midnight because something in his heart told him someone needed him. As for Mrs. Moore, she spent her later years surrounded not by silence, but by people, neighbors who admired her wisdom, children who loved her stories, and a young man who never stopped visiting no matter how busy life became. And every time someone asked her how she found such joy in her later life, she would smile softly and say, because one night, compassion knocked at my door, and when I opened it, I found family. In the end, the apartment building that once felt cold and distant became a place woven with threads of kindness. All because one boy listened to a small sound in the night, and chose to care. And that choice, one quiet act of compassion, changed 2 lives forever.